Welcome, everyone. I'm Bill Newell with MSO News Sports. We have the sports writers here with us today: Phil Stacy, Salem News; Matt Williams, Salem News; and Nick Giannino. He's at the bottom of my right corner there, for me anyway, but he's here as well. And usually, gentlemen, we start with all the local sports first, and we'll get to all the local sports. But we're posting this now on Monday afternoon, recording on Monday afternoon. But Phil, you were at the Bruins game last night, and it's like one of those things that people have been talking about. We've talked about it on our podcast, is what happens if the Bruins go out in the first round, up 3-1, losing the series 4-3, overtime goal after a dramatic, really three straight goal comeback by them to get
Yeah.
back into the game. But man, I don't know what does this. I mean, I guess analytically, what does this mean for the organization? What are they going to do? I mean, how do they? And Matt will weigh in a moment. How do you assess this, if you will?
Well, it's still surreal to think about. We're about 15 hours out from it happening or so last night, 16 hours as we record this, and it still seems like, how on earth did that happen? And then you think, like, boy, they really got away from what they had done all year so successfully over the last three games. I mean, the games are all still close. You had two overtime losses and a 2-goal loss with an empty netter. So, I mean, essentially 3 1-goal losses, but there was just something missing, or a whole lot of little somethings that was missing down the stretch. I mean, and there are going to be questions upon questions upon questions for a long time. I think, did Jim Montgomery panic? Did he not pull Linus Ullmark and go to Jeremy Swayman sooner? Was he playing guys that were hurt that maybe shouldn't have been playing? Were guys out of the lineup for certain games that should have been in there? Were they strong enough on the puck? Were they winning enough wall battles? Did they respect Florida after going up 4-1? It just kind of goes on and on. I mean, I think there are some questions that are going to be answered for them right off the bat in terms of whether Patrice Bergeron and or David Krejci decide to retire. I would almost certainly think that Krejci will. He did not look like himself in the playoffs. In fact, he looked like an older, slower version of David Pasta. He had a nice goal last night in Game 7, but on the by and by, I just think he looked a step slow, and I don't think that he's the kind of player that wants to hang around just for hanging around's sake. So I would not be surprised at all if he officially hangs him up for good. I think Patrice Bergeron's another topic. He revealed last night after the game that he had been playing with a herniated disc in his back, which is, anyone who's had one of those knows it's very painful just to get around, let alone try to play in an NHL playoff game. So I think he's going to take some time. He'll talk with his family. He'll see how his body heals. He says he doesn't need surgery. On the one hand, I'd like to think that he wouldn't want to go out this way, losing the 3 playoff games he got to play on this year. A tremendous record-breaking regular season that goes up in flames in the first round. On the flip side, maybe he doesn't want to put his body through this again in the grind of another 82-game season. I don't know. It's going to be interesting. I think they're set up well for the future. Maybe not like championship timber, but they're set up to be very strong in goal and on defense, and they've got some key parts up front. But I think until they get the question mark of their 2 top centers figured out, they're kind of in a holding pattern a little bit.
Matt, what's your take on this?
Well, just to follow up on the Bergeron talk, I mean, he is not signed, right? So he is, there's a lot of people have been talking about, does he come back? Does he retire? And there is out in left field a third possibility that he does the Chara thing and goes and plays someplace else. And I think in the coming weeks or coming days, that's a conversation that this organization is going to need to have. When they moved on from Zdeno Chara, there was a similar deal, a playoff disappointment, a guy at the end of his deal, wasn't sure if he was going to come back, this, that, and the other. And, depending on who you listen to or who you believe, was it Z's choice to go? Did they kind of decide, okay, it's time to move on and kind of get younger at that position and that kind of thing? And, are the Bruins going to have to take a look and make potentially a similar decision at the risk of the ire of some of the players that are left in that room, specifically Brad Marchand, who probably would, never get over that. That's a third possibility, right? Is that they could decide to move on because he was on a 1 year deal and it is up, so he is a UFA. I mean, he could choose to, if he doesn't want to go out like this, he could choose to go chase a cup someplace else, or they could choose to say, hey, listen, this thing ain't working with you at the top of our room here, and we're going to reboot. So I don't know in the coming days if we'll start to hear more about that. If that's, it sounds crazy, right, coming out of my mouth, but I wonder if perhaps that third option is the place where this whole thing ends up landing as a result of what transpired this year.
Mm.
I
I,
can't help but think comparison. You look at this era of Bruins hockey. Let's say right around the time that Marchand joined the team. Bergeron and Krejci were already established by then. They had Chara there, and Marchand's first year they win the cup. So they've been on a nice little run over that 13-year stretch where they've virtually always been competitive, save for I think 1 or 2 years they missed the playoffs in the mid 2010s. They've been to the Cup 3 times. They won 3 Presidents Trophies, but they continually underachieve, and it makes me think of those Atlanta Braves teams with like Maddox, Glavine, and Smoltz that were so good for so long and won league title after league title after league title, and only had one championship to show for it. And you think like, oh, how many missed opportunities did that team have? Where they could have won, they should have won, whatever. And I guess thank God for the Bruins that they did get that one cup, but other than that, it's just been. I think I read where somebody said today they were done in by their biggest rival, which is themselves, and that's true. They beat themselves once again.
They just played so sloppy. I mean, you just look at this game in particular, and the last 3 games of this series, and just the carelessness that I felt came through on the TV. The blind passes, the turnovers. It just, you hear hockey people talk about details, right? That's the word they use: details, details, details. And this just looked like a team that had no details to speak of. And I think that speaks to the leadership, in my opinion. I mean, for all the chutzpah that they gave Bruce Cassidy about how mean he was, you know, when the players are running the show, that's when you lose track of your details, and when that matters is in a Stanley Cup playoffs. So whether it's with Bergeron at the top of the leadership chart or not, they got to find a way to find a happy medium between having a little bit of ease in the regular season so you don't burn guys out, which Cassidy may have, and also having that respect and that details in the playoffs, right? Can't we find something in between so that we can have success on both ends? Because I think that the looseness obviously paid great dividends in the regular season and then bit them in the butt in the postseason. And perhaps the over tightness with the last guy, hurt them when they ran out of gas at times too. So they got to find some sort of a medium ground there if they want to have success, because you just can't. I mean, I was astounded with the way they played in that overtime, the carelessness. I mean, it just looked like, and I don't mean carelessness that they weren't trying to win, that they didn't care about the outcome, but they were not. They were playing like it was a 4-on-4 summer league, just dinking around with the puck and not showing any care for turning it over and things like that. And in game 7 of a playoff game in your own building, that is just shocking. And that has to be just, it's got to start with the leadership group, whether it's the coach, the captains. I would probably take my A's next year and distribute them perhaps a little bit differently to some of these guys that just did not look interested in doing things the right way at the end of this game. It's just, you know what? Other teams do it all the time, move the letters around, and it might be time to do that here.
Hey,
One last thing, Bill, I would mention is, I felt like I was saying it from about New Year's on that, all the wins and the points and chasing the records and all. Sure, I mean, that looks nice. It's a great talking point, especially for fans, but it didn't matter a whit to me. I mean, what they did in the playoffs was what really mattered. And as it, I hate to say, it was proven right. It didn't mean squat. And you do wonder if they sacrificed some health on the part of the better players, and I'm looking at Bergeron and Allmark, and it's going to come out that Allmark was hurt. He certainly had some kind of lower body or leg or whatnot injury. You could see the way he was leaning on the post during games, or slow to get up and whatnot. But was it worth it to say, well, we got 65 wins or we got 135 points or whatever it was? No one is ever going to remember that. No one's going to care, and it's like you put in 6.5 months of work for nothing. So,
well,
and no
I
first round
respect
picks.
I respect what you guys have to say, but I really want to hear from Nick Giannino on the bees here. And what's Nick? I know you were going over the lines all week in the last 3 games, and thinking about shuffling a few guys around. But what's your take on how it all ended last night?
Well, I did actually watch the clincher last night. I watched some of the games throughout the playoffs, and I was hopping on that bandwagon a little bit. But
yeah,
I don't know. To me, I saw a stat. I think it was 27% of the time a number 8 seed beats a number 1 seed in hockey. So my question is, I mean, you mentioned it with the playoffs and the regular season and setting all those records. It doesn't seem like that matters year in and year out. I mean, how often does the best team from the regular season win? It just seems like the NHL playoffs are a different beast than some of these other sports. You need the puck to bounce your way. It's a lot of it comes down to luck. I know they made their blunders, and we talked about all the turnovers, and they had a 3-1 lead and all that. Yeah, it was like Willie tweeted out. Going back to Giannis, we got to throw in some NBA here, right? Giannis saying, there's no such thing as a failure, and I absolutely think that it was a failure that they lost this series. But at the same time, it doesn't seem like this hasn't happened before, something like this. I know they set all these records and everything, but so my question is, I feel like the balance across the NHL, it's just almost impossible to pick. I mean, you look at me when I pick my teams each year in the paper when we go through the playoffs and we make our picks for each series and who's going to come out on top. I've had some success making those picks, and how much hockey do I watch? I mean,
true.
I got the Knights right now; they're still alive, so let's go Knights. But yeah, I mean, I don't have a true opinion about how they played. I thought it was a very competitive series, and they were right there. And I did see stuff about the Panthers and how they had a great record after the All-Star break and was kind of a whole new team, and they weren't really your typical 8 seed.
Right.
So and the Panthers coach, gave the Bruins a ton of credit. Said that was the toughest series that he can imagine, and they gave them everything they had. And so I don't know. I look at it more. Yes, it was an upset, but I think this is more common than other sports.
Although ironic that both 8 seeds in both the NBA and NHL that upset number 1 seeds came from South Florida.
True. Yeah. Good call. Yeah, they're partying down there.
I think in terms of 8-1, Nick's right about the percentages. But then, what's the percentage when you're up 3-1 in the series to then lose? Right.
Right.
Like
that's the big thing that that's where the collapse comes in.
To me, yeah, like it's not so much that they lost, right? Because I didn't pick them to win the cup.
How they lost.
I did have them win in the first round, but right, to lose 3 games in a row, which I don't think they did the whole regular season, right? And also to have the lead in game 6 and 7, like that's
have the lead and let up the tying goal with 59 seconds left, was it? I mean,
surprising.
And he's not here now, but I want to give him his props. Nick Kukuru picked the Kraken to beat
that's pretty good.
The Avalanche in 7 games
It's pretty
before
good
the playoffs started. So I mean, here I am. I go to 26 games at the Garden a year, and I can't pick the Stanley Cup champion and the points leader to get out of the first round. But Kooks nails that. Good luck for him.
I mean, so I'm wondering. Just looking at this now too, like they don't have a first round pick or a second round pick in any of the next 2 drafts.
Correct.
So that's not a good.
No.
Never mind the setting of the records. Like they went all in to load up this team.
No
so I mean, if you do move on from Bergeron, you may have to move Marchand out of here to try to recoup. I mean, he's signed for 2 more years at a half decent salary. I don't even know if you can get a first round pick out of him or Taylor Hall or something. They're going to have to get creative here
They're probably going
If
to
they
lose
start
Tyler Bertuzzi.
losing some of these, yeah, I mean, that's an issue. I mean, you gave up a first round pick for him. You almost have to sign him, right? Like they got a lot of hard decisions to make over there. But I guess that's why the general manager went to Harvard so he could learn how to do that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
All
So,
right.
what was the reaction with the crowd after the loss? Was it just silent in there? Did they give any chance for the team or anything?
It was silent, stunned, really, almost like, what the fill in your own word there. And then, there's the handshake line, and the Bruins did stick around after Florida left the ice. They saluted their fans. And then as each player skated off, Bergeron, as the captain, was there at the gate. He hugged each player, said a little something to them. The last two guys were Krejci and Marchand, who he's played with the longest. And he kind of spent some extra time with each one of them, and long hugs, and then he kind of went out by himself, gave the fans a stick salute, and he blew them a kiss and skated off. And is that into the sunset? Who knows? I'm not.
Listen, we're going to ask Nick Giannino to do a lot of heavy lifting here because he did all that hockey insight. And now, Nick, we got the Celtics in town tonight with the hosting the 76ers in game 1 of round 2. They made it to round 2. So give us your preview thoughts on this series beginning tonight at the Garden.
Yeah, well, I think it all comes down to the health of Joel Embiid, right, with the Sixers. Did hear a little tip today, and I know people watching this are going to be watching it after game 1, so we'll see what happens. But Mike Grenier tends to think that Joel Embiid is going to suit up tonight. He's listed as doubtful, but he's played 4 out of 5 playoff games, I think, or 4 out of 5 games down the stretch where he's been listed as doubtful. He did get a cortisone shot, earlier today. I think doesn't have a knee brace on. We'll see if he wears it. But in any case, if he's out or if he's not at his best, I think the Celtics have a huge advantage, and that's probably an obvious thing to say. But that whole offense runs through Embiid. Without him, it's going to look a lot different. They do have some decent role players. They still got Tyrese Maxey who can score the ball. They still got James Harden who can score and leads the league in assists. But he's been known to have some rough games in the playoffs. We don't know if his head will be fully in it, especially without his partner there in Joel Embiid. But let's assume that Embiid does play. I think this is more of a challenging, fight than many people would like to admit. I think a lot of Celtics fans feel like we have the Sixers number, and that could be true in terms of regular season. I know they've had some success against them in the playoffs as well, but this is a really good Sixers team. Embiid is having a career year for as good as he has been. 33 points, double-digit rebounds. He can block shots, very efficient. There's no one player on the Celtics that's going to be able to slow him down. I think it's going to be, by committee. We might throw some different looks at him. You got Rob Williams. You got Al Horford. I think Grant Williams is going to get a lot more minutes this season just because of his physicality and what he might be able to do against a guy like Embiid. But, I think it comes down to the home court. The home court should be big for the Celtics. I could see this going 6 or 7 games. I think the Celtics' performance against the Hawks in Game 6 in crunch time was very encouraging. They were able to kind of make a ton of winning plays down there. They didn't revert back to those bad habits. And they closed out a Hawks team that really, gave them trouble and believed that they could win that series. So I think the way that they closed out that Hawks series, the way that they've played all season, the talent that they have, bringing in Malcolm Brogdon, the way that Derek White has been playing, just their overall depth, I think they're a little bit too much, personally for the Sixers. But this could be a long series, especially if Joel Embiid is healthy.
All right. I'm watching the clock, and I know we don't have a lot of time left, but we wanted to get those updates, and we will try to post this tonight before the Celtics game, Nick. So
okay,
so
there you go.
it'll
We'll
be
see if
hopefully
Embiid gets out there, but he
a
was
little bit different.
He was out on the court this afternoon shooting, getting some jumpers up. So we'll see.
I know I
Mike's
had a few.
sources are impeccable.
What's that?
And Mike's sources are usually impeccable.
He said he's got some Sixers beat writers that were, leaning towards Embiid going. So we'll see.
They must be fellow Springsteen fans.
They got to be.
All right, let's do some quick local updates with some of the local sports in our final remaining minutes, but we have time. Phil, let me begin with you and we'll wrap around here and see what we got here. Any highlights from this past week or things to look ahead to this week? Now that we're recording this on a very nice day, but I understand there could be some more dampness ahead this week, weather-wise, for outside
Yeah.
sports.
I'm going to a game this afternoon, which should be interesting. Beverly Marblehead. Marblehead, of course, is one now. I want to say it's 55 straight games in the Northeastern Conference. They really throttled Beverly early this year, but there was a similar situation last year where Marblehead beat Beverly by double digits first time around, and then Beverly made it a 1-goal game second time. So I don't know if that'll be in the cards again this year, but Beverly's up to the challenge. I saw them play Essex Tech over the weekend, and they had a strong second half and pulled away for a 15-9 win. Essex Tech is a good team. I don't think they're used to playing teams that are strong on faceoffs as Beverly was on this day, and Beverly just had possession all afternoon, all morning, I should say, and started to slow down their offense, and because of that, started reaping the benefits of finally finding open guys and scoring goals. So today that's over at Piper Field in Marblehead. I feel like we talk about them every week, but St. John's Prep keeps winning. Nice win on the road Saturday against the defending Rhode Island state champions from LaSalle Academy. They won it in OT 15-14 on a Jake Vanna goal. They have a rematch with BC High this Thursday at Glassfield. They've beaten BC High. They are Catholic Conference rivals each of the past 2 years in the state championships. I don't think it would surprise too many people if they met again for a third time. But they are the top-ranked team in the state. Of course, St. John's I'm talking about. And BC, I want to say, is second or third right now. So that should be a good game. And I know the Eagles have another state champion that they're welcoming in this weekend when they play Staples of Connecticut, who beat them last year. So that'll be a good test for them as well.
All right, Matt, you want to update us on some baseball notes?
Sure. I mean, Masconomet continues to roll along undefeated. They're sort of the highlight of the area right now. I think the Northeast Conference not getting a whole ton of love in the power rankings by most of the teams. Masco, I think, was 11th and 9-0, and everybody else was kind of quite a lot lower. Beverly did not get a lot of love in Division One, even at 7-2. And then, Cougs would be remiss if we didn't mention Saturday. Zach Morris goes on the hill and upsets Beverly for Gloucester. So that's not going to help Beverly at all in the power rankings. Gloucester, I think they're now 3-7. And that's a big win standings wise because it gives Masco a 2-game cushion in the NEC. Done atop the standings there. So Beverly had been trailing by 1 game. They get upset by Gloucester, and now they're trailing by 2 with about 6 to play. So not great if you're a Panther fan, but hey, you can't win them all. That's baseball. You go against a pitcher like Morris, you're going to have trouble. Peabody ran into him last Monday and kind of continued their tailspin. They picked up a win over Winthrop to get back to 4-5. So even though Gloucester doesn't have a great record, Morris has certainly been a stopper. And if they can find a way either into the top 32 or to 10 wins, that's one of those guys in the classic old tournament sense. You don't want to see him coming into your building or your ballpark if you're a top seed there. So that's sort of what's been going on. Salem continues to roll. The Witches have won 5 in a row. They're 8-2. They visit Danvers on Wednesday night, 6:30. So that's a late game. We won't be able to cover it for the newspaper, but we'll certainly have our eyes on the game changer. That's a really interesting game. I think, based on the rotation, Mike Maroney should line up to face the Witches, and I'm sure the Witches will have one of their big guns going as well because they'll have been off for a week when they play that game. So whether it's Finnerty or Rocco Ryan, I mean, they've both been tremendous for the Witches. So Salem continues to roll at 8-2, and really that's about it. Fenwick and Danvers, as we record this, are playing this afternoon. I think that's a really interesting non-league game. Danvers comes in at 5-5, and the Falcons are 0-3 so far in non-league competition. So in terms of the power rankings, if they can pick up a non-league win, that would be really big for Danvers. And Fenwick had won 6 in a row and then stumbled last Friday against Arlington Catholic, a league foe. So Fenwick at 6-2 is a pretty good squad. I think it was 18th in the power rankings with the loss. Had they been 7-1, I think would have been a little bit higher. But still a formidable team Fenwick is. So I'm looking forward to that game. You guys can read about that in tomorrow's online edition if you're watching this on Monday night, or if you watch Tuesday morning. You can go back and check it out too. But that's really what's going on the local diamonds.
SalemNews.com. Nick Giannino, what do you have for us?
Yeah, girls lacrosse. So where Willie said he doesn't think the NEC is getting a lot of love in the rankings for baseball, kind of the opposite for girls lacrosse, right? I look at a team like Marblehead in Division 2 with a 1-8 record. They're 2-8 now. They picked up another win, and they've had a lot of close losses, so we will give them that. But 1-8, and they're comfortably inside the top 32 at number 23 in Division 2. You got a Danvers team that's also under 500, 3-4 when these rankings came out on Friday. They're inside the top 32 at number 25. And then you got Masco, who's having another great season, 8-1. Emmy Clark's scored, I think, 47 goals already, second best mark in the area. They're at number 5 in Division 2. So I think the Northeastern Conference is weighing out pretty good here for the early rankings. And same thing with the Cape Ann League, another competitive league. You look at Division 4, you got Ipswich up there at number 3 at 4-1. Manchester Essex in there at number 5 at 6-2. Even Hamilton Wenham, who's under 500, 3-4. Had some big losses, had some good wins. They're at number 8. So both the Cape Ann League and the NEC seem to be getting quite a bit of love in these power rankings, which is great. And I've said it before on this podcast. I thought the NEC in particular has been super competitive this season. I talked about a team like Marblehead. They've had a ton of close games. They had an 11-9 loss to Masco, who's the top team in the conference right now. So that just shows you, from one of the worst teams record-wise to the best team record-wise, you got a 2-goal game. So there's a lot of parity in the Northeastern Conference. It's been fun to watch. I'm going to be over at Beverly High for the Marblehead versus Beverly girls game today. They're going to be doing a little fundraiser for Morgan's Message to raise awareness for mental health. So that should be a good take today. And I think the game itself should be a good take too. Beverly's another one that's right in the mix in the Northeastern Conference, got some talented players hovering around that 500 mark. So we'll see how things shake out towards the end of the season, but we're going to have quite a bit of teams, qualifying for postseason play. And that's not even, including the other out of conference teams, Bishop Fenwick or Essex Tech, who are both having solid seasons. They had a battle earlier, I think it was last week, 4 overtimes between those two teams. That Essex Tech prevailed by 1 goal in the 4th overtime. So been a lot of good games, a lot of parity, a lot of talent here on the North Shore this year. It's going to be interesting, the next couple of weeks.
All right, guys, I think we're just about out of time. Phil, anything else you want to add to put a closing thought on things?
No, I'm good. I'm just going to say I got to run. But thank you. Appreciate it. Follow along, read the paper, go online.
Well, I just know that
one more thing, Bill. Oh, go ahead.
Finish. No, you go ahead.
Hey, guys.
Yep. Thanks, Bill.
I will add one more thing on the Celtics-Sixers matchup. I think a very interesting thing to be focusing on, taking a look at, is the coaching matchup between Missoula and former Celtics coach Doc Rivers. Rivers has taken some heat with Philly. This might be his kind of last time to make a run here. I don't know how safe his job is. I'm not up on the beat there in Philly, but he's obviously a proven coach. This is Missoula's first go at it with a really talented team. We kind of shunned him a little bit for some of the lack of adjustments he made, or lack of timeouts, or interesting choices when it came to the rotation in the first round against the Hawks. So this is going to be a big series for Missoula, and we'll see how he stacks up against a veteran proven coach like Doc.
All right, gentlemen, sounds good. And Phil didn't leave because he's depressed over the Bruins. He had to run for a quick appointment. But I'm just glad to see that Phil is doing far better than Jack Edwards was doing after last night's game.
That's
man,
true, yeah.
He sounded devastated. I don't blame him. But wow. All right. Well, we'll
Yeah.
get over it. We'll move on. We've got the Celtics to keep an eye on. And Nick and Matt, thank you so much. And earlier, of course, Phil Stacey with us here. Gentlemen, have a
Thanks,
great
Bill.
week.
Thank you, Bill.